research question identified by the authors was what are the barriers and the prerequisites for implementing personalized medicine in low and middle income countries, to identify relevant publication describing barriers and premises for the implementation of personalized medicine in low and middle income countries. The scientific databases were searched. Interpretation of the result was carried out through the five perspectives for the implementation of personalized medicine described by the International Consortium for Personalized Medicine: informed citizens, informed and engaged healthcare providers, health systems that enable personalized promotion, prevention and diagnosis, availability and optimal use of health information to optimize care, treatment, prevention and research, and economic value and regulation of personalized medicine. In the test stage of the search, we identified 561 publications. Studies were eligible if they were reporting barriers and facilitators for personalized medicine implementation, and were conducted in low and middle income countries as defined by the World Bank classification by income level 2022. Following a full text analysis, 15 publications were selected for this study. The results of our analysis show that there are some barriers and premises related to research in the field of personalized medicine in low and middle income countries. Findings in the field of personalized medicine cannot be generalized for application in clinical practice, and implementation of national programs modeled after those in high income countries is not feasible. Implementation of personalized medicine in health system must be preceded by population-specific research in the given region, analysis of disease patterns, and identification of those personalized prevention, diagnosis, and treatment strategies that will bring the greatest benefit for the health system, considering the disease burden in the region and the needs of the communities. There is also a need to ensure the quality of clinical trials. In low and middle income countries, also there is insufficient funding for personalized medicine research. Therefore, personalized approaches prioritized for integration within health system should have an evidence-based approach to public health. Also, facilitating personalized medicine research and assessing the clinical utility of the discoveries in the domain is essential. A premise for integrating personalized medicine into health system in low and middle income countries is the prioritization of personalized medicine at the national level, the development of strategies for personalized medicine, as well as the focus of national health strategies on prevention and quality. An important role in developing the legal framework for research and implementation of personalized medicine is played by policymakers. The high cost of innovative technologies, low awareness of benefits of personalized medicine by policymakers, the lack of political will are barriers to prioritizing personalized medicine at the national level. In low and middle income countries where there is a gap between limited resources allocated to health and the cost of personalized medicine is high, cost-effectiveness analysis of personalized strategies and health technology assessment are needed. Also, insufficient regulation in personalized medicine is a barrier to conducting research in this field. The existence of conductive legal framework that facilitates ethical review of genomic research ensures confidentiality and data protection is necessary. The lack of infrastructure is a barrier to both personalized medicine research and implementation. The development of necessary infrastructures that ensure personalized medicine implementation in clinical practice, such as laboratories, regional biobanks, genetic testing, genetic panels, is a prerequisite for the implementation of personalized medicine. The creation of regional biobanks and the ensuring access for research from our countries based on defined and transparent criteria is necessary. Implementation of personalized medicine in clinical practice also requires the integration of a large amount of data: individual characteristic, lifestyle data, anthropometric data, biomarkers, and genetics. The integration of this data and their optimal use is possible when a digital health system is in place. Insufficient digitalization in health is a challenge nowadays in low and middle income countries. Implementation of electronic patient records is a key element where efforts should be targeted in low and middle income countries. The existence of a digital system would provide the necessary information for the healthcare providers to facilitate therapeutic, preventive and diagnostic decision. The use of digital system also requires the doctors to acquire new skills relating to the use of genomic information as well as informatics skills, so that coordinating efforts by healthcare providers, researchers and information technology specialists are needed. The cost of personalized medicine is one of the most common barriers to the implementation of personalized medicine in low and middle income countries. On the other hand, investment in personalized medicine could increase health inequities. So in low and middle income countries, the development of cost-effective testing panels, identifying solutions that bring maximum benefit and value to the population and the health system is a must. Interdisciplinary collaboration is indispensable for implementation of personalized medicine. Exchange of experience, knowledge, and information transfer between specialists in the domain of personalized medicine in high-income countries and low and middle-income countries is indispensable. The development of multidisciplinary team research networks that will cover all the areas of personalized medicine and enable problems to be identified and addressed in their full complexity are needed. Decision makers and researchers often have different views on resource allocation and priorities in health. Synergistic efforts and information exchange between policymakers, researchers, healthcare professionals, and interest parts are essential for the implementation of personalized medicine. Academics and researchers need to develop evidence-based recommendations for policymakers that will facilitate decision-making and ensure that conditions are in place for personalized medicine to be prioritized at the national level. The creation of a productive scientific community and the establishment of research leaders to promote the concept of personalized medicine are prerequisite for implementation of personalized medicine. In low and middle income countries, personalized medicine services are offered in reference laboratories or private laboratories. The lack of cost coverage for personalized medicine, limited access to genetic testing biomarkers leads to inequitable access to personalized medicine services. Covering the cost of personalized medicine services by insurance, implementing point-of-care testing system, ensuring the availability of personalized diagnostic and screening tests, and ensuring access to them for target population would reduce inequities in access. The lack of trained healthcare system is a barrier to the implementation of personalized medicine, and training of healthcare professionals is a prerequisite that must be fulfilled. For personalized medicine to be accepted by healthcare providers, it is necessary that they are aware of the benefits of this new concept. The training needs of healthcare providers in personalized medicine needs to be assessed, and new training modalities and strategies developed. Ensuring that transfer skills from researchers to healthcare providers and developing clinical guidelines are prerequisites for the implementation of personalized medicine. Preparing future doctors with skills and competencies in personalized medicine also requires revision of education standards in universities. In conclusion, we can say that personalized medicine research is relevant to low and middle income countries and can produce evidence on benefits and advantages for the population. The research results are arguments for policymakers to fund contemporary health approach. Cooperation between researchers, decision makers, healthcare providers, beneficiaries, interested parties is essential in ensuring information transfer. prioritization of personalized medicine at national level and consolidated efforts in all health system actors are needed to implement personalized medicine in low and middle income countries. Thank you.
Thank you. If the audience has some questions, please.
Thank you for your beautiful study. I really like how you structure it and how you present it. I do have two questions. First, simple one. Are you going to publish these results as a paper in some journal or not?
Yes, we have already
published
them.
yeah.
Yes.
And the second question, what in your opinion will be or should be the first step for the academia in terms of support the personalized medicine in low and middle income countries? What we could do?
In the terms of academia?
Yeah.
I think that we can create more powerful academic group of researchers that we can find arguments for policymakers to prioritize personalized medicine at the national level and to make some policies in this domain and to prioritize quality and prevention at the national level.
Okay. Other questions?
Can I ask?
Yes.
Do we have some components of personalized medicine implemented in the Republic of Moldova in our national healthcare system? And if yes, where do you see these components?
Pot să răspund în română aici?
Da, by audience engleză.
In our national health strategies,
system, do we use the personalized medicine?
Yes, I know it is used in treatment of cancers, and other many researches are in development in other domains also.
Thank you. Agreed.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you very much, and good luck in promoting. And we are waiting for some results in this field, which is the future of medicine, of course. Thank you. And we'll go to the next team of work, which we present here. Maria Kubitsky, Eugeniu Bendilic, Ala Păduca, Adrian Cociuc, Maria Jesus Geraldez Hernandez, in vivo evaluation of PMMA anticoagulant shunts biocompatibility.
Antiglaucoma. Yeah. Good afternoon.
Antiglaucoma.
Yeah. Good afternoon, dear professor, dear colleagues. So, glaucoma represents a group of chronic and potential blinding disease, representing a progressively irreversible eye pathology. So it's causing visual field defects as it affects the optic nerve rim and nerve fiber layers. Nowadays, in 2020, already 4.5 million of people were blind due to glaucoma, and it represents actually the second common cause of blindness worldwide, especially in person aged 50 years old. The aim was to investigate the local tissue response to anti-glaucoma shunt or valve in rabbits' eyes after its implantation. So the glaucoma shunt is made of polymethyl methacrylate, which is biocompatible material with ocular tissue, and it consists of shunt itself with a length of 4 millimeters and external diameter of 3.5 millimeters. Also, internal lumen of 1 millimeter. It's compound parts of two spores that prevent the device from being expelled, the valves that evacuate the excess of aqueous humor from anterior chamber of the eyeball, depending on the intraocular pressure, and the oval attachment which prevent intrusion of the device into the eye. Prior to implantation, the device was proceeded with heparin solution. So, 10 adult New Zealand rabbits were used for experiment of 3 months old. It was determined that none of the rabbits had any eye illness, and all animals were handled in accordance with the approved protocols of research ethic committee of Nicolae Testemițanu, State Medicine of University and Pharmacy. The anti-glaucoma shunt was performed on the previously induced intraocular hypertension, So they were divided into groups. Group A that undergoes anti-glaucoma shunt with valve implantation, and Group B that undergoes the standard anti-glaucoma treatment, that is trabeculectomy. The follow-up of all 10 rabbits was performed by the main investigators. Each rabbit seems to be in a good health, and they all ate normally. No animal showed any serious systemic consequence. The anterior segment was examined using the slit lamp biomicroscopy. At the biomicroscopy, the rabbit's ocular status in both groups were observed of any inflammation, infection changes at the level of the blem, was corneal endothelial decompensation, aqueous humor, cell reaction, or iris pathological changes. The death was induced using compromised, compressed carbonic dioxide cylinders, which induce hypoxia, which is devoid of pain and suffering, and loss of consist, preceded by loss of motor activity. So the primary the stain was used was hematoxylineosine and modified trichromic weekly. The hematoxylineosine was done at pathological anatomy laboratory in Hull Trinity Municipal Clinical Hospital, which used a well-known hematoxylineosine, which was the aim to identify macrophage and the foreign body giant cells. The modified trichromic weekly was made at the Instituto de Materiales at University of Santiago de Compostela in Spain, but uses colorant chromatrope 2R, light green SF, photofungistic acids, and acetic acids. It's a qualitative procedure for the detection of and identification of macrophage, leukocyte, erythrocyte, bacteria, yeast cells. It was used the biological research microscope using 4 magnification eyepiece and plan achromatical optical objectives. All the data were acquired with Nikon digital video camera and acquired directly in the computer with the help of the Sentinel program version. The microscopic image were proceeded using the contrast enhancement model of an image analysis program Olympus microimage. The foreign body reaction was observed at the level of a blem filter, which was represented by a single inflammatory cells. In Group A, the anti-glaucoma shunt with valve was removed because the diamond bent so cannot cut it. In Group A and B, no histological evidence were observed for inflammation or active irritation, and either both Group A and B for hematoxylin-eosine specimens. For trichromic weekly, the amount of fibrosis as collagen deposition is associated with the density and extent of staining. There were no tissue reaction adjacent to the sclera, and a thin fibrous capsule was observed covered the remaining device of the body. Within the fibrous capsule, in each specimen analysis, the lumen was free of any blockage and infiltrate exudate. The anti-glaucoma shunt was properly placed, avoiding the contact with the corneal endothelium and the iris structure. This fact is important as it can lead to corneal decompensation. So the intraocular device is made from polymethyl methacrylate as intraocular lenses. Retinal prophezes and others show a high rate of biocompatibility with the eye structure, manifesting a low rate of inflammatory cells accumulation aqueous humor. The heparin-coated surface allows the device lumen to be free of inflammatory exudates and other blockage, which will be compromised at proper function. And these molecules, surface coating molecules as heparin, increase the biocompatibility, allow to improve compatibility, especially in the eyes of a patient that has diabetes or with diabetes. The foreign body reaction is represented by the presence of macrophage and foreign body cells. The number of these cells was small amount around the implant. Around the body of the anti-glaucoma shunt was noted as a fibrin capsule that may be due to the composition of aqueous humor. The same response was observed by the group of Defoe in an implantation of express in a human eye. Aqueous humor contributes to local cellular response as it contains various number of cytokines and chemical mediators and promote the fibrosis of the blem surrounding the implant. One of the most frequent complication that can appear is the tube obstruction due to the aqueous humor component and the local reactivity of ocular tissue. In our study, during the follow-up period, there wasn't observed any specific sign to this complication. The success of anti-glaucoma shunt is the proper placement in the anterior chamber related to its structure, so it's necessary to avoid the contact of the corneal endothelium and iris, which can lead to endothelial decompensation. So in our study, there were no signs of corneal decompensation examined at slit lamp by microscopy. However, there was some limitation, so our study was a small sample, but it's compensated with a period that the rabbit was observed for 3 months. Also, it was used all known method of filtering surgery to mimic the process of glaucoma treatment in the human eye. However, some data may not be directly correlated with the human eye findings. Anyway, our study also demonstrated that there were no difference in collagen area, blend structure, inflammatory area between the anti-glaucoma shunt valve group and trabecular ectomy group. So in conclusion, we can tell that the data obtained from a histopathological examination reveals a good tolerability and the safety of anti-glaucoma shunt with valve without any adverse effects and inflammatory response. So the device can be an alternative to traditional glaucoma treatment. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Very interesting issue. Questions, please? I have a question. Are you using in patients? Do you have some cases by
So
using this
now we just
type of treatment?
Thanks a lot for the question. Now we just finished the main stage of experimental preclinical experimental study stage, and after this, yes, we just intend to make it on patients.
Okay, thank you. More questions? Okay, thank you. Good luck. And the next would be Evelina Lisnik, Medicală. The role of molecular genetic assay in the diagnosis of pulmonary tuberculosis in the Republic of Moldova.
Thank you very much. For Republic of Moldova, tuberculosis is an important healthcare issue. Actually, we are diagnosing around 2,000 new patients with tuberculosis in our country annually. And it's important to emphasize that every fourth patient never treated for tuberculosis is diagnosed with multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. What means multi-drug resistant tuberculosis means that the patient is already infected with the strains of mycobacteria who are already resistant to the first-line anti-TB drugs, especially to isoniazid and rifampicin, the most powerful anti-TB drugs used in the treatment of drug susceptible TB. Actually, according to the WHO list, Republic of Moldova is included in the high MDR-TB cases with around 8,000 MDR-TB cases registered per country till this list was developed, and represent an important issue to assess the role of new diagnostic tools in detection of such tuberculosis. The gold standard in diagnosis of drug-resistant tuberculosis, of course, actually in the Republic of Moldova are the conventional cultures on solid Lowenstein-Ginson media, either MGI BACTEC media. However, it's important to demonstrate that the delay till we'll obtain the results of conventional cultures is around 2-3 months till obtaining the first results. And for this purpose, we started from 2014, molecular genetic tests based on PCR. Actually, we are using GeneXpert MTB-RIF, which is a PCR test identifying the DNA of Mycobacterium tuberculosis and the gene responsible to resistance against rifampicin, which usually is associated with the resistance with isoniazid. So actually we use this molecular genetic assay, GeneXpert MTB, to establish the drug resistance from the first 2 hours after the detection of the patient. From 2022, we use GeneXpert MTB rifampicin Ultra, which is associated with the biomarkers of identifying the resistance against rifampicin and fluoroquinolone, an important second-line TB drug for MDR-TB, which of course reduce the duration till the detection of the patient till the diagnosis of drug-resistant or extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. However, the major disadvantage of the PCR assays, as medicine, is that the positive results doesn't indicate that these mycobacteria are viable, which means we cannot use this test to assess, to evaluate the patient during the anti-TB treatment or at the end of the treatment or previously treated for tuberculosis patients, which means we will have always probably positive results who could do some determine erroneous diagnosis. So actually conventional cultures on solid either liquid media remains the gold standard for diagnosis of MDR-TB. The aim of our study was to determine the role of molecular genetic tests in diagnosis of pulmonary tuberculosis in patients from the Republic of Moldova. Some objectives we traced as assessment of the risk factors for TB according to the drug resistance profile, establishment of the predictors for positive molecular genetic assays, and evaluation of clinical peculiarities, case management, and outcomes. In general, we used a sample of 673 patients never treated for tuberculosis, diagnosed with pulmonary tuberculosis in the Republic of Moldova in the year 2020 till 2021, from which 431 were positive at the molecular genetic test GeneXpert, and this main sample was distributed in the study group, in one group which is drug sensible TB, including 304 cases which were sensible to rifampicin at this molecular genetic test expert, and a control group or second group which included 127 cases with positive and resistant to rifampicin assay, and we controlled with 242 patients who were negative to all microbiological results. What I have to emphasize is that in our country, unfortunately, we can establish diagnosis of tuberculosis without having some microbiological results according to some criteria. First of all, clinical criteria, if we identify the clinical signs which are specific for tuberculosis, as cough more than 3 weeks, mucopurulent expectoration, hemoptysis, dyspnea, asthenia, very important loss of weight, fever, feverish, night sweats, and according to the radiologic abnormalities, if you have some destruction, dissemination, pleurisy, and other rare patterns we will describe later. So in the Republic of Moldova, we are available to establish diagnosis even if we don't have microbiological positive results. So we distributed patients according to the sex and age, and we identified that in all groups predominated men. However, it's important to emphasize that women are more exposed to get infection and to develop infection, active disease from infection. However, Moldova is a high TB burden country, and that's why the complexity of social risk factors who has the highest impact on the risk of development of tuberculosis determined that 2/3 of all patients were men. Then we distributed the patients according to the WHO age classification, and we established that microbiological negative patients predominated statistically in the age groups between 25 and 44 years old, and microbiological positive even sensible or susceptible in those who were older 45. However, when we distributed in two groups, younger and older 45 years old, we could not establish some statistical differences. We evaluated the risk factors for acquiring tuberculosis active TB from infection, and we established that social vulnerability, the state of the single person, and tobacco smoking was identified in the majority of patients. However, we have to emphasize that social vulnerability and tobacco smoking, of course, predominate in drug susceptible TB, and I can explain some data that usually we are diagnosing social sensible TB in older people who are developing active TB from a latent infection who acquired during their young age. And of course, in 50 years ago, the epidemics was associated with drug susceptible TB. So they are due to some social vulnerable risk factors associated with tobacco smoking in majority of cases are developing active TB from latent infection. However, the young people who are acquiring actually MDR-TB is more frequently developing tuberculosis after immediate primary infection of drug-resistant strains. What I want to emphasize from this situation, that actually young people who are acquiring tuberculosis, they are acquiring from the community because you don't have the number of the sources in our high TB, MDR-TB country. Another risk factors which did not differ between the groups were HIV infection. For us, HIV infection is one of the highest spreading infection among the TB patients. Actually, we have between 10 and 20% from all TB patients, according to the region of the Republic of Moldova, who are associated, who have TB associated with HIV infection. So in our country, every two-thirds of patients with tuberculosis who are dying, they are diagnosed with as well HIV infection. Other associated diseases were identified in every third patient from all groups, and from which we identify in majority of cases diabetes mellitus, treatment with some immunosuppressive drugs or chronic corticosteroid therapy, and in rare cases gastrointestinal diseases such as hepatitis. For other reasons, we have an important number of patients who were previously detained in detaining institutions of the Republic of Moldova, and we have identified some patients who were former detained. Another important issue for our country is the identification of TB contact. TB contact is usually very low reported by the TB patients. Why? Because they don't want to create the TB clustering and to come the epidemiological teams to establish the contacts in their family clusters, and that's why the number of TB contacts is very low. Alcohol abuse is an important issue in general for public healthcare system, and usually we identify in every fourth patient associated, of course, with tobacco smoking, and more diagnosed in drug susceptible TB because it's more patients are more older. This social wrong behavior. So we evaluated the radiological abnormalities to identify the predictors of positive molecular genetic testing, but is general for any microbiological investigation. And we identified if the tuberculosis is localized in more than 3 segments, if tuberculosis is localized in both lungs, and if tuberculosis is associated with lung destruction, especially with caverna. They are predictors for microbiological positive results. Of course, this is for available for molecular genetic assays. We evaluated the clinical symptomatology, and we defined 2 types of signs of intoxication and bronchopulmonary, and of course we evaluated that in majority of cases predominated asthenia with loss of weight, cough with expectoration, and fever and feverish. We evaluated as well the case management, how we detected those patients till the diagnosis. and the majority of patients who were microbiological positive and with positive PCR assays were passively detected, which means this, that the patients are symptomatic and they are collected for harvesting the sputum, the smear sputum, and for evaluation for mycobacterial agents. So patients with positive assays were more frequently detected by passive way of detection of the investigation of the symptomatic patients. High-risk group screening, which means the screening of several risk groups from the population predominated in the microbiological negative group, because those patients were more or less symptomatic and they were detected by other types of investigation. So we use the treatment according to the drug susceptibility or drug resistance, and we receive the higher treatment success in drug-sensible TB. So I have to emphasize in the Republic of Moldova for drug-sensible TB we use 4 drugs for 6 months, and for MDR-TB we use 6 drugs between 9 months till 24 months. And microbiological negative patients were treated as conventional drug-sensible TB, which means this, that even we did know that the spectrum of drug resistance, we used the first-line anti-TB drugs such as we use for drug-sensible TB. So that's why there is a difference that in drug-sensible TB the treatment success was higher than in those microbiological negative, because of course in some microbiological negative we can escape some resistance and which lowered the treatment success. Treatment failure, which means treatment failure, means that the patient even the continuous treatment he remains microbiological positive, and a low number of those were identified in drug-sensible tuberculosis. However, the higher number were identified in those who were detected with MDR tuberculosis and were microbiological negative. Why? Because in those among microbiological negative, we could escape those who were resistant. What means loss to follow-up? This is a new outcome, which means that the patient doesn't want to continue the treatment for more than 2 months. So the rate of loss to follow-up of course was high in MDR-TB and microbiological negative, and it was lower in sensible TB, and one of the reasons is lower treatment course in drug-sensible TB. The death rate was low in drug-sensible TB and was high in MDR-TB as in other countries. As in conclusions, microbiological methods are the leading investigations to be done compulsory to all patients suspected for tuberculosis. However, the molecular genetic tests such as GeneXpert rifampicin is strongly recommended to perform in every symptomatic patient with radiologic abnormalities. We obtained some negative results. The predictors for positive expert results were extensive and severe forms of pulmonary tuberculosis, expressiveness of the clinical complaints, and the comorbid state. The risk factors for drug tuberculosis were contact with patients with TB, life history of penitentiary institutions. So in the recommendation we propose a dynamic approach in the investigation of the never exposed to anti-TB patients from molecular genetic tests, especially of those with clinical signs and radiological abnormalities. Thank you.
Please, questions from the audience? Yes.
So I was wondering for microbiological rehabilitation PCR positives, did you have any possibility to retest by PCR and see if there is any variation in CQs?
Yes. Thank you very much for the question. Yes, it's interesting question. We simplify the situation. If we have microbiological negative result, but we have GeneXpert sensible to rifampicin or resistant, we are classifying. If they are sensible, they are classified as sensible TB, and if they are resistant to rifampicin, they are immediately classified as rifampicin resistance. And we start immediately the treatment as conventional for sensible TB, for those who were gene expressed positive and sensible, and for MDR-TB of those who were rifampicin resistant. And in 3 months, 4 months, this is the Republic of Moldova, we receive the cultures because we are doing the harvesting of the sputum at the end of every month of the treatment. So we have this possibility to test again. Of course, the situation is poor when the patient remains microbiological positive despite the results. So according to even the treatment is correctly done, but microbiological he remains positive. Of course, this is associated with extensiveness of the disease that we cannot localize for the radiologic abnormalities, and continuously the patient is spreading the infection, and of course he exposes himself to extending the drug resistance because it is continuously exposed to anti-TB drugs, and so drug resistance continuously is extended. I hope I could answer.
Other questions? Just a short question. Does in Moldova the incidence of TB continue to increase?
Yes, thank you very much for this question. We have a very huge impact of the COVID-19 pandemics. This decreased the incidence. The incidence means the new cases. So before the pandemics, we were detecting around 2,000 new cases per year. The pandemics reduced the accessibility of the symptomatic patients to the healthcare providers to be tested, and we during this period reduced the number of new cases that were in period of time. But now we are starting to redress the situation to increase the number of new cases. However, till now we are suffering from the consequence of the barriers which were raised during the COVID, and we emphasize that it could be repeated in autumn season or in the first quarter of the 2024, and that's why we are starting to prepare the system to detect patients using the non-governmental organizations who are more closely to the TB clusters.
Thank you. Okay. If not questions, we will go to the next speaker. Aurelия Спиней, Светлана Громадяла, Волга Луциану, Елена Христя и Юлия Спиней. Impact of tumor necrosis factor alpha on dental caries development in children with severe CNC scars.
Dear professors, dear colleagues, my name is Sветлана Громадяла. I'm one of the researchers of our groups that tried to study this study. The role of immunological factors in dental caries pathogenesis was studied of a lot of the authors, and they being mentioned the relation between the impairment of non-specific and of specific immunity factors and the intensity of the caries process. Cytokines are mediators of cellular interaction, and their binding to specific members receptors trigger intracellular a series of events acting upon the nucleus, regulation the defense reactions of the body, and maintaining homeostasis in case of pathogenesis, response, as well as influencing thermal metabolism, cicatrization phenomena, cell growth, hemostasis, and immune activity, and bone resorption and synthesis. Tumor necrosis factor alpha was initially described having both a cytostatic and cytotoxic effect on certain tumor cells. Currently recognized as a pro-inflammatory cytokines with biological pleiotropic capacities, being mainly produced by macrophages and T cells. It was being shown that tumor necrosis factor alpha trigger both the inflammation and inflammatory response, being involved in both the defense response of the host body and certain immunological activities, and moreover, tumor necrosis factor alpha is one of the cytokines considered the key mediators of acute inflammation. Production of tumor necrosis factor alpha can cause various diseases of the oral cavity. At the same time, the role of these cytokines in the pathogenesis of dental caries is now well known. Professor Tani have showed that tumor necrosis factor alpha, which is produced locally by osteoclast, is an important factor in the differentiation and the regulation of these cells participating in bone resorption process. A high level of the caries morbidity has been established as children with intellectual disabilities in studies performed by several authors. The immune system, together with the central nervous system, are the most important system in the integration, responsible for maintaining body homeostasis and vitally in children under various conditions of the environment. There are not data of the tumor necrosis alpha concentration in saliva and blood serum in children with severe diseases of the central nervous system and dental caries. Therefore, assessment of tumor necrosis factor alpha in saliva and blood serum in children with severe disease of the central nervous system will allow to highlight some aspect of previously unexplored pathogenesis of dental caries. The objectives of our study was to perform a comparative evaluation of tumor necrosis factor alpha level in saliva and blood serum in children with severe disorders of the central nervous system and conventional healthy children in order to highlight the role of tumor necrosis factor alpha on the initiation and development of dental caries. The study was conducted at Nicolae Testemițanu State University of Medicine and Pharmacy. It was consisted 1,242 children aged between 1 till 18 and was divided in two groups. First groups, research groups, and the same number was the control group. The research and the reference lost showed comparable structure by sex, age, living environment, and social economic condition. There was calculated the indices of prevalence of dental caries and indices of caries experience in temporary and permanent dentition. The caries activity was assessed by the method proposed by Lewis, taking into account the DMF index in temporal permanent dentition and children's age. Prediction of dental caries and a complex assessment of caries risk was carried out applying software chirogram. The potential of oral fluid mineralization, oral fluid microcrystallization, was assessed using the methods proposed by Professor Leos. The hydration of the saliva drops was produced into the unit at 37 degrees, protected from dust. Preparation were examined under AM scope, were analyzed fracture structure, separate crystals, and amorphous substance interferation of crystallographic components was achieved by applying special tablets with the notification or characteristic of the study structure. The study was approved by the Research Ethics Committee of the Nicolae Testemițanu State University of Medicine and Pharmacy and conducted in accordance with ethical requirements being evidenced by the written consent of children parents of their legal representatives. The level of TNF-alpha in oral fluid and blood serum was estimated at 212 children randomly selected from both groups. Tumor necrosis factor alpha level were determined by enzyme immunoassay on solid cohort using the vector-based reagents and accordance with manufacturer's recommendation. Children in the research group were diagnosed with severe central nervous system disorders associated with a delayed mental development. Moderate mental retardation was found in 24% of children, severe mental retardation in 35%, and deep mental retardation in 39%. Thus, 48% of children suffer from infantile cerebral palsy. Of children suffer from epilepsy and convulsive syndrome. The prevalence of dental caries in the research group was statistically higher comparing with the control group. Here in the prevalence of dental caries, how much is more higher, and the index in the temporary, mixed and permanent dentition, the levels. The probability of avoiding the development of new cavities of children with severe central nervous system diseases was reduced as opposite to 63% in healthy children. The risk of dental caries development of children with disability was 1.87 times higher comparing with healthy children. The result of the investigation specified the main type of the oral fluid microcrystallization. For the type of the microcrystallization present of the large prismatic crystal structure from merger if firm is characteristic. For quantitative data objectification, microcrystallization type 1 was assessed by 5 points. For fused random fracture structure are characterized of type 2 that isn't have a big difference between first type. The other differences you can observe here in the types 3 till 6 that in this type it's complete lack of the crystals. If you look until 3 till 4 till 6 type of the microcrystallization. The enzyme immunoassay found statistically significant difference in the level of tumor necrosis factor alpha in the saliva and blood serum of children in the research and control group. The level of tumor necrosis factor alpha in saliva in children with severe central nervous system disease is 5.53 times higher, while in the blood serum it's in 10.19 times higher comparing to healthy subjects. The height level of the tumor necrosis factor alpha was estimated in saliva and blood serum of children with severe central nervous system diseases caused by perinatal hypoxia. And, in children, in addition, was found a strong relationship between tumor necrosis factor alpha concentration in oral fluid and number of Streptococcus mutans, children with severe central nervous system. diseases, in contrast to a weak relationship estimated in children in the control group. The same trend was observed analyzing the correlation between cytokines concentration in blood serum and the number of Streptococcus mutans in saliva of children with research and control group. And in conclusion, children with severe central nervous system diseases, tumor necrosis factor alpha concentration in saliva is 5.53 times higher, and in blood serum is 10.19 times higher compared to healthy children. There was established a strong direct relationship between DMF index, number of Streptococcus mutans in dental biofilm, and tumor necrosis factor alpha level in saliva and blood serum of children with severe central nervous system diseases, in contrast to weak relationship estimated in infants in the control group. In children with severe central nervous system diseases, there was revealed a strong inverse relationship between tumor necrosis factor alpha concentration in saliva and blood serum and the changes of avoiding new caries development as opposite to the inverse average relationship estimated in healthy children. And the excess of tumor necrosis factor alpha production, both locally and systematically, influences increased caries risk and dental caries morbidity in children with severe central nervous system disease, which is necessary to consider when planning individualized prevention measures. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Please, do you have some questions? Okay. The same team will present no?
Yes, please, sorry.
The same team. The relationship between dental caries, damage, tooth enamel, aplasia, and the peculiarities of culture homeostasis in children. We present also from the others.
So here in this research, the same group, because you are PhD students and Miss Professor Aurelia Spinelli is our scientific advisor. And here about the relationship between dental care damages and tooth enamel, we want to told that the enamel morphology is its complex process initiated by the secretion of proteins from the enamel matrix, followed by the mineralization and maturation. Other authors describe that this disturbance produced at different stages of enamel formation can cause a wide variety of macroscopic and structural changes, like developmental defect of the enamel. The enamel hypoplasia is a consequence of defective enamel matrix formation, and defective calcification causes hypermineralization. Among the causes of enamel hypoplasia are mentioned a series of genetic, system, environmental, local, and socio-demographic factors. Series of study included a possible relationship between developmental dental enamel and the height caries experience. According to the data of the some research, DDA may play an important role in increasing the susceptibility in the development of dental caries. Professor Oliveira thinks that have established increased susceptibility to dental caries of children with DDA, in particular subjects with enamel hypoplasia. Other authors demonstrate that the increased rate of dental caries in hypoplastic teeth is due to increased microporosity and poor mineralization of tooth enamel, as well as the increased accumulation of dental biofilm. And was others suggested an association between enamel hypoplasia and severe early childhood caries. Several authors have hypothesis that enamel hypoplasia and the increased susceptibility to dental caries in children on different age could be caused by changes in calcium homeostasis from systemic or oral causes during the pre- and postnatal period of development. Recent research support this finding and further mention the impact of the nutritional deficiency, particularly poor vitamins D metabolism and lack or compromised mineral absorption as risk factors of enamel hypoplasia and primary dentition. Our previous studies established the relationship between dental caries image and the disturbance of phosphocalcium metabolism at the macroorganism level in the blood serum and locally in the oral fluid children with severe central nervous system diseases caused or associated with chronic tissue hypoplasia. Was detected the statistically significant decrease below the normal limit of the level of calcium, phosphor, and vitamins D3 in blood serum, as well as the significant decrease of the calcium phosphor race in the oral fluid. The objective for this study was to study the relationship between dental caries enamel, hypoplasia, and markers of calcium homeostasis of children. The data collection was carried out by applying the instrument according to the questionnaire for recording the oral status proposed by the Oral Health Organization. Was assessed the prevalence of enamel hypoplasia, caries experience indices of prevalence indices of dental caries, and indices reflecting the intensity of dental caries in the temporary dentition and the permanent dentition. The prediction of the risk of occurrence dental caries was used the Chirogram software. The same. The study was conducted at State University of Medicine and Farmacie Nicolae Testemițanu. Participate 246 children aged between 1 till 18 and was divided in two research group and one control group. The number was equal and it consists of 82 children. Biochemical research in the blood serum includes the determination of markers of phosphocalcium metabolism of all children included in the study. The venous blood was collected in the morning. And the blood serum was frozen and stored at minus 40 degrees. The evaluation of markers of calcium homeostasis in blood serum and saliva was dosing total calcium, phosphate, magnesium, vitamin D3, parathyroid hormone. The study was conducted in compliance with the principle of the Declaration of Helsinki and was approved by a research at the community of the Nicolae Testemițanu State University of Medicine and Pharmacy. The analysis of investigated results were using the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet programs was created a database where was entered the information from the children's clinical survey sheets. The data analysis were carried out with the application of Microsoft Excel and APF Info software. The statistical processing of the research result including the calculation of the rates, the results of the dosing, the marker homeostasis calcium, the average value of the prevalence indices of dental caries and enamel hypoplasia, the intensity of the index of dental caries in temporary dentition and permanent dentition. The veracity of the indicator was determined by calculating the standard deviation. The analysis of assessment the result of oral health status detected at different level of damage by enamel hypoplasia and dental caries in the children of the research of the research group and the same the control group. 100% of the children in the first research group were diagnosed with enamel hypoplasia. In 39% of children with enamel hypoplasia, the prevalence of caries lesion was detected. Indices of dental caries intensity for affected teeth was 4.59, and tooth surface affected by dental caries in temporary dentition was 7.38. Intensity of damage by dental caries in the permanent dentition was 3.24 for affected teeth and 7.98 for dental surface permanent dentition was affected by dental caries. Dental caries was detected in all subjects of second research group. Prevalence index of dental caries was 100%. Intensity index or indices of dental caries in temporary dentition for the affected teeth was 3.26, and the affected surfaces was 6.59. The damage of DMFT index was 3.76, and the damage of the DMF as index, the same was higher. Were not detected clinically signs of enamel hypoplasia in the children from the second research group. Enamel hypoplasia and dental caries damage were not detected in the control group because these children was affected by dental caries. The analysis of content of calcium, phosphate, and magnesium in the blood serum detected significant differences between these indicators in children from the research group, the both research group and the control group, in which the mentioned marker was within physiological limits. In the majority of children with enamel hypoplasia and dental caries, disorders of phosphocalcium metabolism was detected, characterized by a statistically significant decrease in calcium level. In relation to control group being below the normal limit. In the blood serum of children with enamel hypoplasia, this is in the first research group, the relative decrease of phosphor level up to 1.21 and the magnesium to 0.63 was found compared to conventionally healthy children. In children with dental caries in the second research group was found the same trend of decreasing phosphor level up to 1 till 24 and magnesium 0.61 compared to conventional healthy subjects. In the oral fluid of the children from the research group simultaneously with the reduction of the content of the calcium, phosphor, magnesium in the blood serum was detected a significant decrease in the level of the calcium and phosphor. In the children from the research group was established a significant decrease in the calcium phosphor ratio in the oral fluid in the first research group compared to the control group. The lower value of the calcium phosphor ratio in oral fluid were detected in children with enamel hypoplasia associated with dental caries, including early childhood caries and extensive area of the tooth enamel demineralization located on symmetrical tooth surfaces or those considered carie resistant. According to the result of several studies, the relation of the calcium phosphor it's below 1 and 1.52 constitute an unfavorable prognostic factors of the evaluation of dental caries caused by the disturbance of the tooth enamel remineralization process. since the calcium and phosphor ratio was lower in children with enamel hypoplasia, we believe that this fact could be the consequence of the disturbance of the calcium homeostasis during the formation of enamel matrix, but also during the period of tooth enamel mineralization. In the blood serum of the children in the research group was detected the disorder or the blood level of hormones and regulators of phosphocalcium metabolism. The decrease in the level of vitamin D3 and the increase in the level of phosphocalcium the level of vitamins D3 in blood serum in children with enamel hypoplasia was 37.721, and the subjects with dental caries have 41%. In the second research group, two difference from the level of vitamin D within the limits of the age norm estimated in healthy children. The increased level of PETH was detected in the blood serum of children with enamel hypoplasia and rampant dental caries, and respectively 1.23 times high compared to conventionally healthy children, which could be caused by vitamins D3 deficiency. The vitamins D3 deficiency is a trigger for minerals and bone metabolism disorders described by several researchers. According to studies by Professor Vera, the best known function of vitamins D3 is to maintain calcium and phosphorus homeostasis in the body and support the bone mineralization process. The main effect of the hydroxycholecalciferol is to stimulate the transport of calcium from the lumen of the small intestines into the blood circulation, thereby increasing the serum concentration of this element. Since adequate concentration of calcium phosphorus influences osteomineralization, several deficiency of vitamins D3 and its active form causes influencing mineralization, resulting in the development of which in children with osteomalacia in adults. The increase of PTH in an indicator of severe disorders of mineral and bone metabolism, secondary hyperthyroidism, being a compensatory reaction of the parathyroid glands following prolonged hypoglycemia. Long-term deregulation of calcium homeostasis leads to its mobilization from bone stores, which caused the osteopenia syndrome. And thus the early disorders of growth process and the deregulation of phosphocalcium metabolism could influence the susceptibility to dental caries, but also the occurrence of enamel hypoplasia, as well as the associated of enamel hypoplasia and their childhood caries. Was the last. In the conclusion, it was established that the deficiency of vitamin D3 and its active forms caused the disturbance of calcium homeostasis, followed by secondary hypoparathyroidism, which could be compensatory reaction of the parathyroid glands following hypoglycemia. We assume that the early disturbance of calcium homeostasis is one of the factors associated with the formation of enamel hypoplasia, increased the susceptibility of dental caries, but also determined the associated with enamel hypoplasia with early childhood caries. Thus, vitamin D3 deficiency and increased parathyroid production can be used as marker from blood serum in the disturbance of calcium homeostasis, of ones of anemia, increased susceptibility of dental cares and rampant dental care development, and the detection of important risk factors for the formation of anemia and the rampant evaluation of dental cares requires a complex approach in the planning of measures to prevent dental cares and anemia, which in the framework of complex and personalized preventive care in addition to local methods of prophylaxis should include the administration of medication for balancing calcium homeostasis at the local level and the system level.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next presentation will be the ACMO experience in post-cardiogenic shock case presentation by the team Verica Performat, Victoria Russo, Alexandru Botezanu, Dar Ilski, Alina Sataya, Dan Andrilă, Natalia Rusu, Igor Ceban, Lucia Sârbu, Vârbu, Alexandru Bacinian, Victor Botezanu.
Dear professor, dear colleagues, I don't speak very well in English, and my presentation is in English. Can I speak in Romanian? Sorry. ECMO. ECMO este oxigenare extracorporală membranară, care este un dispozitiv utilizat pentru a proteza funcția de pompă a inimii sau funcția de oxigenare a plămânilor. Ea este utilizată în calitate de protezare a funcției de oxigenare atât cardiacă, atât și respiratorie. Ce este șocul cardiogen post-cardiotomie? Aceasta este o stare de hipoperfuzie tisulară care este cauzată de intervenția chirurgicală care duce la decăderea de pompă cardiacă. Ce este ECMO în post-cardiotomie? Aceasta este oxigenarea membranară extracorporeală care este utilizată la pacienții care au trecut prin intervenția chirurgicală pe cort și au dezvoltat un șoc post-cardiotomie. În aceste cazuri se utilizează ECMO post-cardiotomie veno-arterial, veno-arterial, ca se poate extrage din cont inima, astfel că dispozitivul ECMO lucrează ca o pompă. În cazul când este utilizat la insuficiența respiratorie, se utilizează ECMO veno-venos, ca se poate proteza doar oxigenarea membranară. 40% din cazurile de amplasare a dispozitivului ECMO sunt plasate în terapie în sala de operație, iar 60% în unitățile de terapie intensivă. Însă, din păcate, cu succes au fost datele literaturii de specialitate vorbesc că sunt sevrați de la ECMO doar 56% din pacienții care au fost plasați în ECMO și doar 41,7% din acești pacienți supraviețuiesc pe parcursul aflării în staționar. Acum avem un caz, report despre un caz de succes care a fost efectuat, care a trecut prin instituția medico-sanitară, Spitalul Clinic Republican, Spitalul Timofei Moșneaga, în secția de chirurgie cardiovasculară. Un pacient este internat cu o valvopatie severă, mixtă, combinată din mitrală și tricuspidală, care se complică cu o insuficiență cardiacă, cu un deficit de pompă cu o fracție de ejecție de 37%, norma mai mare de 54%, cu o hipertensiune pulmonară severă, cu până la 60 mm a coloanei de mercur la o normă de 25-30%, cu dereglări severe de ritm, fibrilație tahisistolică și cu congestie hepatică pe fond de diabet zaharat. Pacientul a fost luată decizia să fie operată în mod urgent amânat, să fie efectuată protezarea valvulei mitrale și plastia valvulei tricuspidale. Pacientul au fost luate toate riscurile și s-a determinat un risc ASA 4E, ce vorbește despre o posibilitate de mortalitate în primele 24 de ore postoperator, despre un risc cardiovascular înalt de 4 metri, ce vorbește despre o posibilitate de stop cardiac pe masă de operații, despre un risc tromboembolic înalt, pacientul a primat preparatele anticoagulante indirecte și cu trecere preoperatorii la heparinele cu masă moleculară mică, un scor de hemoragic moderat și un risc de stroke înalt. Pacientul a mers la intervenție chirurgicală sub anestezie combinată intravenoasă și inhalatorie cu mioplegie la respirație mecanică invazivă. Pe parcursul anesteziei, parametrii hemodinamici au fost stabili sub protecția inovazotropilor. Durata intervenției chirurgicale a fost de 7 ore 45 de minute, iar anestezia a durat 8 ore și 45 de minute. În condițiile unei hipotermii de temperatura corpului coborâtă până la 31 de grade, cecul, adică circulația extracorporală în timpul lucrului pe corp, a durat 5 ore și 13 minute cu o clampare a aortei pe o durată de 2 ore și 30 de minute. După ce pacientul a început să iasă de pe cec și încălzit până la temperatura de 37 de grade, la pacient se determină niște dereglări severe de ritm care au încercat să fie înlăturate prin instalarea electrocardiostimulatorului, administrarea medicamentelor, terapie antiaritmice medicamentoasă și aplicarea cardioversiei electrice. Însă la pacient se dezvoltă un șoc cardiogen, postcardiotomie cu o decădere totală a funcției de pompă cardiacă și a fost necesar să lua decizia pentru refractar la inovazotrop, să lua decizia de a merge pentru suportul ECMO veno-arterial. Deci, la pacient se instalează un suport veno-arterial de ECMO. Literatura de specialitate spune că el poate fi instalat sau prin canularea aortei sau central, în timpul intervenției chirurgicale transsternal, sau periferic, să fie un abort prin vasele centrale magistrale. În cazul nostru au mers pe vasele magistrale femorale, au fost ambele plasate pe partea dreaptă, direct, după cum și se recomandă, ca să fie o reîntoarcere venoasă direct în atriul drept. Pe fonul aplicării dispozitivului ECMO are loc cât de cât creșterea perfuziei tisulare, cu creșterea aportului de oxigen, consumului de oxigen, coeficientului de extracție, dar s-au manifestat deja semnele de reperfuzie, sindromul de reperfuzie. Se menține hiperlactatemia până la 4, ce dovedește că pacientul se află în continuare într-o stare de șoc. Și ecocardiografic, fracția ejecției de la 37 a scăzut încă și mai mult la 10%. Se dezvoltă o disfuncție multiplă de organe, plămâni de șoc, rinic de șoc, ficat de șoc, ischemie, deci edem cerebral post-ischemic și dereglări de coagulare cu afectarea mecanismului plasmatic. Fiind stabilit deja pe ECMO, pacientul, deoarece circuitul contribuie la creșterea statutului protrombotic, este necesar să se utilizeze terapia anticoagulantă, pe de o parte. Pe de altă parte, procoagulantă. Ce am încercat noi să ducem acest pacient, pentru că este o experiență nu atât de frecventă, am deschis literatura de specialitate, ghidurile internaționale și am văzut că pentru a minimiza tromboza pe circuit este utilizată heparina în administrare continuă cu 1000 de unități pe oră pentru a menține un ACT, Activated Clotting Time, până în limita 150-180 și fiecare 2 ore ele trebuie reevaluate. În același timp, pentru a vedea dacă heparina lucrează și are pe ce să fie aplicată, am făcut controlul la antitrombină 3 și în cazurile când ea era sub normă, era administrată plasmă proaspăt congelată ca sursă de antitrombină 3. În cazul care ACT se ridica mai sus de 180, ajungea și până la 210, noi nu am utilizat protaminul sulfat, deoarece el este contraindicat, căci neutralizează toată heparina și putea să ne blocheze membranele de oxigenare. Deci dacă astfel noi am putut controla factorii plasmatici, atunci ce se întâmplă? Pe de altă parte, pe fond de ECMO începe să sufere mecanismele trombocitare și anume ce se întâmplă? Apare și trombocitopenie din cauza la activarea și agregarea trombocitelor. Pe de altă parte, ele este și o stare de trombopatie, deoarece se pierd acei receptori care le pot face legătura cu alți factori de coagulare, cum ar fi și factorul Willebrand. Da, pe de o parte avem ECMO care trebuiește protezat să nu se trombeze. Pe de altă parte, noi avem necesitatea, avem un pacient post-cardiotomie. Deci riscul de hemoragie este foarte înalt și literatura de specialitate ne dă o incidență de 90%. Și pacientul nostru nu a fost o excepție. În primele 24 de ore el dezvoltă o hemoragie mediastinală până la 2,5 litri și deoarece nu avem dreptul să administrăm protamin sulfat, deoarece ne-am temut să blocăm aparatul, am minimizat administrarea de heparină până la 250 de unități pe oră, ca să menținem ACTV-ul în limita 142-208 și APTT-ul până la 70. Factorii de coagulare au fost compensați prin plasmă și crioprecipitat, iar anemia, pentru a mări aportul de oxigen la un pacient care și așa este suferent, pe fond de șoc post-cardiotomie, am ridicat hemoglobina peste 120. La 48 de ore după intervenție chirurgicală, pe fonul unui tratament intensiv, cu administrare de factori de coagulare, cu administrare de masă eritrocitară, o terapie polivalentă din terapie intensivă, cu implicarea detoxicării extracorporale, cum ar fi plasmafereza și hemodializa, la 48 de ore are loc stoparea hemoragiei, cu ridicarea hemoglobinei la 130 și normalizarea factorilor plasmatici ai sângelui. Doar trombocitele rămân la nivel jos. Nu am reușit să le corectăm. Peste 72 de ore se determine o stabilizare cât de cât a macrohemodinamicii și a semnelor de restabilire ecocardiografice, se ia decizia de a sevra pacientul de la dispozitivul ECMO. Luând în considerație normalizarea datelor echilibrului acido-bazic, cu restabilirea pH-ului până la normal, cu scăderea lactatului până la 1,5, care arată o perfuzie tisulară adecvată, normalizarea aportului consumului și a extracției de oxigen de către țesuturi, pacientul a fost sevrat de la dispozitivul ECMO și canulele au fost extrase. Literatura de specialitate așa și propune un aparat ECMO dispozitiv să fie utilizat timp de 72-96 de ore, dacă pacientul nu merge mai departe, dar mai departe poate să meargă la transplant de cord. Și doar 50% din pacienți cu succes pot fi sevrați de la ECMO. Ceilalți 50 pur și simplu nu supraviețuiesc. Astea sunt datele literaturii de specialitate din lume. În cazul care la pacient este restabilită funcția cardiacă, dar nu este restabilită insuficiența respiratorie, atunci e posibil, literatura de specialitate ne spune că se poate de trecut de la ECMO veno-arterial la veno-venos pentru oxigenarea în continuare a sângelui. La 7 zi postoperator a fost pe fonul creșterii fracției de ejecții până la 50%, pe fonul activității normale a protezei mecanice, pe fonul sevrării și opririi suportului simpaticomimetic cu normalizarea tuturor parametrilor hemodinamici, pacientul este sevrat de la ventilator, detubat și s-a aflat în terapie intensivă timp de 24 de zile. a fost transferat în secție de profil și s-a aflat timp de 30 de zile în staționar, apoi a fost transferat în secție de recuperare. Pe parcursul aflării pacientului la aparatul ECMO, noi am știut că pot fi diferite complicații, precum ar fi fost tromboza vaselor membrului cu ischemie membrilor inferioare, sindromul de compartiment, o disecție arterială. Când am scos canulele, a fost absolut necesar să vedem dacă sunt trombi rămași după canulare. Din cauza aceasta s-a făcut Doppler duplex a vaselor membrilor inferioare. Permanent era împreună cu medicul neurolog, se precauta să nu fie AVC ischemic prin embolie sau tromb sau hemoragic. Se precauta care este starea creierului. Toate acestea au trecut pe lângă noi și, ca și concluzii, aplicarea dispozitivului ECMO la pacienții cu șoc cardiogen post-cardiotomie este o măsură eficientă de recuperare postoperatorie cu efecte pozitive de tratament și restabilire. Iar aici vreau să vă prezint eroii care au lucrat cu acest pacient. Sunt medicii colectivul secției de terapie intensivă de chirurgie cardiovasculară, care face parte din clinica de anesteziologie, reanimatologie numărul 2, în frunte cu domn profesor Cojocaru, care au și ghidat, de fapt, să aducem la succes acest caz de bucurie pentru toți.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for my...
Questions? Congratulations for your team and good luck in future work. And the last presentation, not the least, Carla Mutieșlova, Gleb Donin, Romana Skobodova, clinic and cost efficient effectiveness of tele-rehabilitation system in balance disorder patients.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce you our results of our study we performed with my colleague Gleb Donin and Romana Svobodova. So, balance disorders are a really common consequence of brain damage, and it really often has a chronic nature. So it means that patients face this problem like for the rest of their lives. Other studies shown that rehabilitation focused on balance disorders has really big and good impact on these patients, but the problem is that when the therapy ends up, the effect of the therapy is like decreasing in time. So the really essential for this patient is to have the opportunity to undergo the physiotherapy like for a long term. But as we can imagine, it's not really possible because of the overloading of the system and not enough of therapists and so on. So how we can solve this problem? Maybe one option could be a telerehabilitation. Sorry. So how we can imagine telerehabilitation? Telerehabilitation is basically rehabilitation when the therapist works with the patient remotely. So the patient can be at home, do their therapies, and the therapist can somehow like check on the patient and be in touch with the patient. So in our study, we used a home balance platform, which was developed mainly for the telerehabilitation. The home balance platform including a stabilimetric platform, tablet with software containing therapeutic games, and cloud storage. So how the therapy with this device works? So there are like 4 tensometric sensors in each corner of the platform, and those sensors detect the center of pressure of the patient. On the background of this slide you can see like it's a screenshot of one game, so we can imagine what is probably the aim of this game. So the aim is to move the blue ball on the red point, and the red point is changing the position. So how the patient is moving their center of pressure, they play the game. Also, this the data from the game are sent to our cloud storage, and then the therapist can check on the patient if they do their therapy, if they do it well, and then there are like regular phone calls or video calls with the therapist, and the patient and the therapist discuss the therapy. So, but what is the problem? The problem is that this kind of therapy is not covered by our health insurance company. So it means that we needed to make this study in which we aimed for like evaluating of clinical effectiveness, estimation of direct healthcare cost, and like the result was the cost effectiveness analysis of this telerehabilitation system. So the patients accepted for this study were patients after stroke or patients with multiple sclerosis who performed some objective balance disorders, and the experimental intervention was telerehabilitation with the home balance platform. As a comparator, we chose a standard physiotherapy focused on balance disorders performed in clinic. The time horizon was set up for 4 weeks, and the costs were evaluated from the payer perspective. So the clinical data collection were made as a part of multicentric randomized control trial, which was approved by the local ethics committee, and the primary clinical outcomes were Berg balance scale, which is like a standardized test for evaluating of static and dynamic stability, and patients also filled up the EQ5D, which evaluates the health-related quality of life. So the telerehabilitation cost consists of initial and final medical cost, examination cost, and other costs were like telerehabilitation medical procedure costs, which were estimated as the sum of relevant personnel and overhead costs. And then we also calculated the device costs. The comparator costs were evaluated based on the claims of health insurance companies, and we calculated the average 4 weeks patient costs. So let's move to results. Here we can see that the experimental group included 18 patients, the control group 15 patients, and there is no significant difference between groups in terms of sex, age, or diagnosis. We also can see that the most common diagnosis was stroke. Here I would like to show you the statistical examination of results of Berg balance scale score. The first plot shows the comparison of initial and final examination. The yellow plots are for experimental group, and the blue one is for control group. So based on this, we can say that both therapies were statistically there was statistical improvement, significant improvement. And the second plot shows the comparison of changes in a Berg balance score between those groups. And here we can't see any statistical improvement. So the result of this tell us that the telerehabilitation has the same effectiveness as a standard physiotherapy. Here we can see the same tests for other markers we were evaluating, and these results also show the same result, and it means that telerehabilitation is clinically effective, and the effectiveness is the same as the standard physiotherapy. Due to this, we decided for a cost minimalization analysis. So we just compared the cost of telerehabilitation and standard physiotherapy. So we can see that telerehabilitation was like slightly different than standard physiotherapy, because in standard physiotherapy we can see that 100% costs were paid for like procedures, but in telerehabilitation it was just 14%, and the rest was for equipment costs. Average for weeks patient therapy costs were for telerehabilitation significantly lower. So we also performed the one-way deterministic sensitivity analysis. So we have changed a few parameters to see which parameter is the most sensitive, and as the most sensitive was the number of outpatient visits. So there, when we changed this parameter, we have seen the, biggest impact on the result. But what is important to say that even this parameter didn't cross the border of the zero line, so always the result was the same, that the telerehabilitation is more cost effective than standard therapy. So the effectiveness of telerehabilitation intervention is comparable to standard in-person physiotherapy. The telerehabilitation intervention proved to be more cost effective, with the cost saving around 25%. We also performed the threshold analysis to see where is the threshold for the purchase price of the device, and there we can see that it can grow up to 30%. So, telerehabilitation is an effective alternative of standard physiotherapy, and in my opinion, the great way how to use telerehabilitation would be combination with standard physiotherapy. For example, we can imagine an example that the patient undergo the standard physiotherapy once in a month, and the rest there is like a telerehabilitation consultation with the therapists, and like this the patient can really receive a long-term physiotherapy. So there are like huge benefits in a time and cost savings, and not just from the side of the system, healthcare system, but also for the patients. Because if we look at it from the patient's perspective, we can see that the patient doesn't have to go twice a week to a clinic, and doesn't have to pay for the travels and so on. So I think it could be a solution, but let's see. Thank you for attention.
Thank you. Questions? We are very late. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will just conclude in a few words. Of course, new technologies already move forward the technologies in medicine and change some methods, approaches to treatment patients. Artificial intelligence and other technologies which come, of course, will change more and more the technologies used in medicine, and each of you are doing some steps, or is doing something to move this forward. Thank you for all of you, and have a good and bright. Thank you.
of Moldova, and my presentation is about nanotechnology, counter-proliferation, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. It is little far from the general subject of the conference, but is liaison with nanotechnology, of course. This subject was developed in the framework of the international project financed by S2 during the last 3 years. Why is necessary to address the subject of nanoproliferation and responsible research in this way? I found an eloquent example from the literature, especially about one group of researchers who for years searched for molecules with greater toxicity by modeling artificial intelligence systems. They did it finally, and to generate tens of thousands of molecules which surpassed existing ones in terms of toxicity. And asked at one of the international conferences on nuclear security, for example, about the potential use of the model for vicious purposes, the researcher, also working with neurotoxin, responded. Regarding the potential ill-fated proliferation, the thought never occurred us. We are not prepared to consider it. Please pay attention to the last sentences. You are not prepared to consider it. I am convinced that in this situation is very common for many researcher groups. Everywhere that knows that nature of nanotechnology, for example, biotechnology, nanochemistry, nanomedicine, nanoengineering, information to communication technology suggests a far-reaching perspective. But the unique, innovative, dual-use nature of nanotechnology inevitably conduct to advance in both offensive and defensive military capabilities. You know that every research, indifferent is fundamental research or applied research, have dual-use applicability in the future. It is an expected situation because if you look back in history, you find that scientific technological progress is inseparable from the progress of military armament. The potential offensive military application of nanotechnology may have a potential that surpasses the potential of classical weapons of mass destruction, and may thus change the existing balance of power. In this paper, scientific researcher Manuel Rocco described and predicted the following 3 periods in the development of nanotechnological products, especially of technology. Obtaining of passive nanostructure, obtaining of active nanostructure, nanosystems like nanorobots, nanobiotechnological, by introduced special physical, chemical, and biological properties of nanostructure, and of course an information system. And last, molecular nanosystem like intelligent devices of the molecular, atomic, and quantum level. As you can see, all of nanotechnology development phases can be dual use for civil and military purposes. In this respect, necessary to mention that the United States Department of Defense identified nanotechnology as one of the 6 strategic research areas, and nanotechnology program is grouped into 7 program component areas for military use. How nanotechnology may be used in different technology for weapon of mass destruction. In auxiliary system for computer modeling of nuclear weapons, we know that finally nuclear weapons are characterized by sophisticated guidance, safety, and security transfusion systems. Nanotechnology ensures the drastic miniaturization and better integration of sensor with mechanical, optical, and electronic blocking elements. You know that the release of energy per mass of nuclear energy material is over 10 million times greater than that of chemical explosion. But in real explosion, only a fraction of the nuclear acts, so a weapon must contain more molecules, more nuclear materials per energy to be released. Nanotechnology can contribute to enhanced compression of fissile materials through chemical explosion and complex fission and fusion combination. Thus, nanotechnology will increase the yield for certain mass of nuclear materials. Nanotechnology also may be increase the computing capabilities used in nuclear technology for many other order of magnitude. In chemical and biological weapons, nanotechnology contributes to the formation of new chemical agents, as well as weaponization, mechanism of storage, delivery, release, entry in the target body, etc. Nanotechnology can also promote the discovery or creation of new agents in all known classes of chemical agents. Together with biotechnology, nanotechnology enables the creation of new microorganisms that could be used as biological weapons. Nanotechnology also has the ability to increase the potential of biotechnology, starting with the design phases of microorganisms with the elite characteristics. By this, the characteristic of incubation period of epidemicity, infectivity, persistence, instability, and retroactive can be optimized for military uses. Nanotechnology be used in many forms, including as capsule for secure encapsulation and delayed release of agents, as active group for binding to a specific target in organs or cells, as vector for easy entry into the body of the cells, especially in the brain, as selective reaction mechanism with specific gene of protection patterns, and as reducing risk is to one part to be limiting persistence of improved binary principles. But nanotechnology may also be used for protection from cyber and weapon of mass destruction. We primarily means earlier and more sensitive detection so that other protective measures can be taken. In the second row, there are nanotechnology methods of blocking molecules through spore, as well as ensuring the degradation or distinction of the agent, often by using the large surface area of catalytic nanomaterials. Some of these proposed methods could be used as filter for gas mask, or intake, etc. on protective suits or applied to contamination area after an attack by weapon of mass destruction. In nanoelectronics, photonics, spintronics, and the weapon of mass destruction, we refer to, if you refer to a microelectronic, nanotechnology may be used to allow the continuous reduction of the size of components, subsequently using new principles, for example, on nanotube or biomolecule. Obviously, under certain dimension, quantum effect will dominate and can be used consistently. Devices that are use electron spin will have high response speed at low power consumption. In photonic, for example, using generator, transfer, switching, and processing of optical signals. Nanotechnology provides also new architectural sources, detector and devices such as waveguide, filter, and couplers. Nanomagnetic is driven by giant magnet resistance effect, so you observe the decrease in electrical resistance between thin ferromagnetic and non-magnetic materials. So bulk materials made from nanocomposite magnet will allow to stronger permanent magnet, which will increase the energy extracted from magnetic motors or generator. Nanotechnology also could be used for elaboration of software, artificial intelligence, computer and communication, which uses weapon of mass destruction or organization of maintenance and management of weapon of mass destruction. Computer components will continue to get smaller, faster, and more capable. Progress in the field will be based on the evolutionary adaptation of microelectronic process to smaller structure size. If nanotechnology and quantum computing became practical, it will be applied on the one hand for secure communication, on the other hand for faster breaking of code. In addition, it will be used in many fields to solve hard optimization problems or to run simulation of many of matter phenomena. One of the biggest areas of use of nanotechnology is development of material science for weapon of mass destruction. It could offer a wide range of material with improved and new properties. This refers to the whole spectrum of new materials, structural, functional. Composite material has been used in military system for a long time. For example, carbon fiber in aircraft for high strength and low weight. Metal with nanoscale crystallinity can show markedly improved property. Greater hardness can be used in nanostructured coating, which exhibit low friction and wear at high and low temperature. From other hand, amorphous metal that has an irregular structure on the nanoscale and produced can support about double the elastic strain of traditional multicrystalline metal. In the category of the functional material, one example is provided by nanocomposite permanent magnet that could provide high efficiency for power electronics and electrical motor. Nanofiber can be used for textile with integrated sensor and electronic connection. Membrane with nanometer for achromazine for filtration and protection. From the other side, active material already exists, meaning materials that can change shape and exert a force when exposed to suitable control conditions. They are based on piezoelectricity or shape memory, and nanotechnology can improve its property. Alternatively, biological or hybrid materials based, for example, on myosine or kinesine can be used, so integrated with the sensor, power and processing, this active material can become smart material and adjusting switches to reduce vibration or changing shape for different aerodynamic characteristics used for military purposes. It's not necessary to mention utilization of nanotechnology in sensor for weapon of mass destruction and for other purposes. I think it's necessary to underline the other utilization of nanotechnology for weapon of mass development, for example, for elaboration and new architecture of energy sources and energy storage, for propulsion mechanism, for elaboration of new vehicles, for conventional weapon also, and especially new direction is development of robot and autonomous vehicle has been the subject of military research and development for decades. You are witnessing the expansion of the use of unmanned autonomous system in the world is negligibly in the present war in Ukraine. In this picture, I presented the general application of nanotechnology for offensive and defensive military application, which I mentioned earlier. So that's my conclusion is that responsible research and innovation has emerged as umbrella field for a variety of efforts to help researchers become more engaged with the responsibility to the public and to our future. There is a relation, reasonable consensus on the principle mentioned above. Thus, to the responsible in the science, research and innovation should be anticipatory, reflexive, inclusive, and responsible. That is, the research scientists and engineers should reflect on the possible future consequences of their research. So that is general picture of using nanotechnology for the development of weapons of mass destruction and also for protective against the use of weapons of mass destruction, but also in non-conventional weapon too. That's all. Thank you for your attention. And if there are questions, please, I am ready to answer and my competence, of course.
Very dangerous area of nanoparticles used.
Yes, you know about the development of nanotechnology in liaison with chemistry and biotechnology, which may construct new molecules with more toxic effects for everything.
And you talk about nanoparticles or that created by chemical methods or
Indifferent. There are many types of technology for obtaining nanoparticles. From chemical solution, by electrical deposition, by thermal deposition of different material.
Because we prefer to use nanotechnology for peace, for healthcare problems.
Every researcher has a dual use, in my opinion. Every researcher. but it's necessary to know the frontier of utilization of this research area. Mai sunt întrebări, este și o văproase?
We can speak in Russian if you want. We have some problems with English.
I don't know, maybe my colleague. Dumneavoastră rusă puteți prezenta?
На русском понимаю.
Nu, dar prezentarea rusă nu puteți?
Prezentarea rusă din cauza terminologiei.
Ok. Bine, Bine, o să prezentați, pe urmă o să vă anunț. Dacă, if there are no questions, please, the next presentation, the recovery of alpha-lactalbumin at the electroactivation of waste. So, you ask lady to present in Romanian, but the presentation is in English. I think there are no problem to have a question after that. Vă dau stafeta Просто по-русски затруднения с терминологией.
I'm between two walls.
Puteți să vă antrenați în engleză, nu e nicio rușine, noi toți începem așa, da.
Так, se vede bine sau să fac
mai mare puțin?
Da.
E ok?
Ok.
Deci așa. În contextul economiei circulare, procesarea produselor secundare este o problemă destul de pe prim plan din cauza necesității diminuării efectului nociv asupra mediului ambient. De aceea, în prezent, sunt numeroase metode de prelucrare a zerului, care este unul din aceste produse secundare care rezultă la fabricarea produselor lactate, cum este cașcavalul sau brânza, cunoscută mai mult în Republica Moldova. Principalele și cele mai des utilizate metode de prelucrare și de valorificare a conținutului valoros ce se conține în zer, și anume a proteinelor, a lactozei, sunt metodele și procesele precum și combinarea acestora ca cele chimice, termice, fizico-chimice, biotehnologice, electrofizice. În rezultatul utilizării acestor metode apar numeroase produse, cum sunt concentratele proteice, hidrolizatele proteice, izolatele proteice, diferite pudre din zer care se utilizează ca formule alimentare, ca diferiți substituenți în unele produse sau ca fortificatori pentru unele produse alimentare. Fracția proteică a zerului este una din cele mai căruia se acordă cea mai mare atenție în prezent, iar în descreșterea conținutului acesteia în zer, aceste fracții sunt beta-lacglobulina, alfa-lactalbumina, imunoglobulinele, albumina serică bovină, lactoferina și lactoperoxidaza, care mai mult fac parte din conținutul minor proteic al zerului. Alfa-lactalbumina face 20% din conținutul proteic, este o proteină de dimensiuni mici, proprietăți acidice, cu o afinitate destul de înaltă față de ionii de calciu și altor cationi bivalenți. Este constituită din resturile a 123 de aminoacizi și intră în complexul lactoze-sintaza ca o proteină regulatoare. De menționat este că sub anumite condiții de procesare, alfa-lactalbumina poate forma nanoparticule, nanotuburi sau filtre din punct de vedere biotehnologic, care deseori sunt utilizate ca transportori a unor substanțe bioactive care necesită să fie duse anume, să zicem, undeva în corpul nostru, într-o mucoasă undeva. Pentru studiul extragerii alfa-lactalbuminii în concentrările proteice minerale la electroactivare au fost selectate 3 tipuri de zer, care diferă între ele după conținutul proteic inițial în ele și anume au fost enumerate în descreșterea conținutului acestui conținut proteic în ele, adică 0,1 va avea cea mai mare cantitate de proteină în el, 0,2 o cantitate medie și 0,3 va avea cea mai mică cantitate de proteină conținută. Pentru realizarea electroactivării a fost utilizat electrolizorul experimental cu membrană EDP2, care reprezintă o celulă separată de o membrană cation selectivă și din 2 electrozi, catodul și anodul. Electroactivarea a fost la 2 regimuri. Acestea este densitatea curentului electric de 10 și 20 mA pe centimetru pătrat, care se menține constantă pe durata procesării, schimbându-se doar perioada de colectare a concentratului, acesta fiind 5 și 10 minute de colectare. Pentru a studia fracțiile proteice extrase în concentrate, s-a utilizat metoda electroforetică, care ne-a permis să identificăm 4 clase principale de fracții. Acestea sunt fracțiile înalt moleculare, în care intră albumina silică bovină, lactoperoxidaza și lactofedina, cazinele, beta-laglobulina și, desigur, alfa-lactalbumina, care este dedicată prezentarea. Analizând conținutul proteic al zerului inițial, se observă că zerul 1 are o componență a fracțiilor proteice destul de omogenizată, cu zerul 2 care are o cantitate mai mare de beta și alfa față de zerul 1, dar o cantitate mai mică de proteine înalt moleculară și cazeină față de 0,1 și 0,3 care, spre deosebire de celelalte două, este foarte bogat în beta-lactobulină și alfa-lactalbumină. Și iată anume această diferență o se observe mai departe la obținerea și identificarea acestor fracții în concentratele obținute. Electroactivarea zerului 1 are cea mai mare cantitate proteică inițială, însă după cantitatea de beta-lactobulină și alfa-lactalbumină cea mai mică, are o tendință, să spun așa, o extragere omogenă la 10 mA pe centimetru pătrat, cu o creștere ascendentă la 20 de mA pe centimetru pătrat a alfa-lactalbuminii și o creștere puțin mai mare din primele 10 minute de electroactivare la mărirea pasului de colectare. De menționat este că o cantitatea mai mare de alfa-lactalbumină se extrage la un pH mai alcalin, dacă se vede după diferențele de culori de pe imagini. La electroactivarea zerului 2 observăm deja o extragere mai mare a alfa-lactalbuminii spre finele procesului, unde ajungem în conținutul celulei catodului, unde avem 35 aproximativ procente de extragere alfa-lactalbuminei, conținutul celulei catodului reprezentând faza lichidă care rămâne la procesare și nu se extrage sub formă de spumă, spre deosebire de celelalte probe care le colectăm la 10-20 de minute de procesare. 0,3 cu cea mai mică cantitate de proteină inițială, însă cu cea mai mare cantitate de proteină, de fracție alfa-lactalbumină în conținut înainte de procesare, prezintă cea mai mare extragere a alfa-lactalbuminii la ambele regimuri de procesare, ceea ce ne spune că însuși conținutul inițial al proteinii în zerul inițial foarte mult influențează la rezultatul care vom avea după electroactivarea zerurilor. Pe lângă faptul că la electroactivare se obțin concentrate proteice minerale, simultan se obține izomerizarea lactozei în lactuloză Și acest lucru noi presupunem se datorează alfa-lactalbuminii care intră în complexul lactozei sintetaza, conținutul care este direct legat de concentrația lactozei în lapte, iar pentru a putea demonstra că la electroactivare noi într-adevăr avem izomerizarea lactozei în lactuloză, a fost utilizată metoda polarimetrică, știindu-se că unghiul de polarizare pentru lactoză este pozitiv, iar pentru cel al lactulozei acesta este negativ. Astfel, la electroactivarea 0,3, la densitatea curentului electric de 10 mA pe centimetru pătrat, avem la 30 de minute de procesare o scădere, o întoarcere a unghiului de polarizare, acesta fiind de 0,3 și 0,8 grade și 0,3 și 1 grade în celula catodului, în conținutul celulei catodului. Iar pentru electroactivarea la densitatea curentului electric de 20 de mA a aceluiași zer, deja după 20 de minute de procesare, unghiul de polarizare este de -1, iar în conținutul celulei catodului acesta este de -1,4 grade. Rezumând cele prezentate și expuse, se poate de spus că electroactivarea diferitor tipuri de zer ne permite recuperarea și obținerea concentratelor proteice minerale înnobilate cu alfa-lactalbumină la diferite regimuri. Extracția alfa-lactalbuminii în concentrate spre finele procesării este direct legată de gradul maxim de izomerizare a lactozei în lactuloză, datorită atât prezenței alfa-lactalbuminii în complexul lactoză-sintaza, cât și variații valorilor pH, temperaturii, a timpului de procesare generate în timpul procesului de electroactivare, de asemenea și a condițiilor favorabile de transformare a lactozei în lactuloză după mecanismul Amadorei. De asemenea, o influență o are și saturația cu ionii de calciu care vine din celula anodică în celula catodică, favorizând formarea diferitor complexe proteice și în special formarea complexelor dintre alfa-lactalbumină cu ionii bivalenți. Atât este, sper că nu am scăpat nimic din ceea ce a trebuit de spus și dacă sunt întrebări, cumva am să încerc să le răspund.
Thank you for the presentation. Very interesting subject. If there are any questions, please.
I have a question. How you use the applied of electrical fields for upgrade the technology? Yeah. You also work with român. How it correspond such technology to new tendencies to respect ecological food, for example? Deci cum corespunde aplicarea tehnologiilor noi de extragere mai puternică a diferitor componente la tendința care este acum că tehnologia alimentară trebuie să fie ecologică, deci este naturală, fără implicarea altor factori.
Mă scuzați că am întrerupt. Cum spune doamna Elvira, aceasta este fișca noastră, să spunem așa. Deci la electroactivare noi nu obținem reziduri din zer, noi obținem doar concentrate proteice minerale și lactoza izomerizată în lactuloză. Adică noi luăm reziduul dat, îl procesăm și dăm în rezultat două produse, fără a deversa încă ceva în natură. Ceea ce rămâne în celula anodului, da, lichidul anodic. Noi îl putem revitaliza, să spun, recicla și reutiliza, îl îmbogăți din nou cu ion de calciu sau ion de asta. Plus, consumul de energie care noi îl avem la electroactivare este destul de mic. Păcat că nu am pus un slide cu consumul specific de energie.
Nu, asta e clar pentru mine. Accentul la mine a fost puțin altfel. Deci dumneavoastră, prin aplicarea unui câmp electric, dumneavoastră nu numai stimulați separarea,
Da.
dar
Și
stimulați și
izomerizarea.
cantitatea care o obțineți. Trebuie să crească la electrostimulare.
La electroactivare
Da.
aveți în vedere dacă
Da.
crește
Cantitatea produsului final.
Păi, din undeva din o tonă de...
Cred că trebuie să... În comparație cu procesul
Da,
natural
da,
care îl
este
lăsați.
adică recuperăm mai multă
Da.
proteină decât celelalte, da, este așa.
Păi,
Este,
asta
adică este mai
contravine
productiv.
produsului ecologic pur, care acum este în vogă și scrie în toate noile regulamente că nu trebuie aplicat tehnologii noi care să forțeze extragerea mai puternică a diferitor
Nu, e doar un randament
componente.
mai mare. De exemplu, la nanofiltrare, microfiltrare, acolo se primește concentrate unde proteine de 90%, la noi undeva 70-80%. Însă este de o calitate mai bună. Rata de clivaj a acestor proteine este mai mare comparativ cu aceea.
Da. Bine, mersi.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Please. In English and Russian, I will translate it necessary.
Did you talk about lactose, from lactosa to lactulosa forms? Is the forms changes?
Yes, I talked about the isomerization of lactose into lactulose.
From
From the whey. Whey contains as well as proteins and lactose. 17% of content from whey is lactose. So, în rusă, сыворотка. Молочная сыворотка.
Из сыворотки.
Да. То есть в молочной сыворотке содержится также лактоза. 70% компонентов. Нужна лактулоза, она используется... Ой, там есть... Сейчас я не хочу просто сказать...
Формула химика есть?
Да. Вместо, там, кажется, я просто не хочу сейчас показаться... Они, вот как идет... Там тоже тоже два сахарида, тоже два монозахарида, да, тоже. Но оно другое, там галактоза и если... Да. Нет, бета-1,4 это я показывала, вы про ту картинку. Там я показывала. Сейчас. Так, сейчас.
Там, наверное, связи меняются.
Вот, нет, это нет. Это кристальная структура синтеза, лактосинтаза. Это фермент. Это не лактулоза. То есть это не лактулоза, это просто, как правильно сказать, это синтаза. Вот альфа-лакталбумин входит. И когда у нас при электроактивации выходит самое большое количество альфа-лакталбумина, вот тут, вот видите, максимальное количество выхода альфа-лакталбумина, да? То есть это соединение из этой энзимы, оно разрывается. И получается при выходе в конце вот изомеризация, то есть выход альфа-лакталбумина максимальный, он у нас приходит, соответствует максимальной изомеризации лактулозы. Я не знаю, откуда взять картину лактулозы, чтобы показать. Это как бы изомер. Вот, то есть вот если лактоза, у нее вот этот угол, вот тут сидит вот эта группа, то лактулоза, она вот в этой стороне. Они как бы... Да, то есть плюс и минус. То есть это как изомеры. Да, они вот смещаются. Вот нужно, значит, как-то держать связь и Если бы тут была... Да, я сделаю презентацию за нее, если бы она была... Было бы подетальнее, понемножку. Нет, я очень рада, что такие вопросы. Мне это в будущем будет помощь.
Da, o să vă ajute de acum să știți la ce să atrageți atenția mai mare. Ok. Vă mulțumim foarte mult. Thank you very much.
Și eu vă mulțumesc frumos.
The next article, paper.
Which language you
You are free to...
If Russian.
In English, please. Yeah, in English.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Shanik. I'm from Yerevan, from the Institute of Biomedicine and Pharmacy, and today I'm going to present this work dedicated to antibacterial activity of green cellular nanoparticles in combination with benzapenicillin and kanamycin. Unfortunately, I'm not the author of this work. I'm just going to present it because this work is my colleague's work. So, I will try. So, as we know, the antibacterial resistance is one of the main problems in healthcare, in public health. So, scientists try to find some solution for this problem, and one of these solutions could be nanoparticles that can have antibacterial property. And antibacterial property, as we can see from this picture, can be occurs by reactive oxygen generation on the surface of bacteria, by proton pumps damage on the surface of the bacteria, and in the case of in-cell presentation, it can be by DNA damage, by protein damage, by small subunit of ribosome damage, and also it can be the synergetic activity with different type of antibiotics. So we created new nanoparticles by green method, which means that they used different extracts. As you can see, this is some blueprint of their experiment. So we can see that they create some nanoparticles by extract of Osmium aeratum. It's a basil. After that, they tested the morphological characteristics. So they have found that these nanoparticles have spherical form, and the diameter was from 9 to 12 nanometers. After that, they tested their antibacterial activities by different biological methods, and we can see different groups of experiment. It's from 6 to 7 groups, as we can see from the next slides. First of all, they tested their antibacterial activity by this diffusion method, and as we can see from these pictures, in this one, nanoparticles have antibacterial activity in high concentrations, but they didn't show the activity in low concentrations. But when we checked their activity in combination with the antibiotics, it's the last 3 pictures, we see that the active concentration of nanoparticles and active concentration of antibiotics increased, which means that the activity decreased, and which means that the activity increased but the concentration increased. It's a very good thing. Oh, I'm sorry. And we can see, for example, from this picture, the yellow one, it's different concentrations of nanoparticles. And we can see that from the third to the sixth concentrations, they didn't show antibacterial activity. For example, benzoyl penicillin has antibacterial activity only in the first two high concentrations. But the combination of these two components, it's the blue one. But combination of these components leads to antibacterial activity increased. And also we have found that the concentration decreased. What does it mean? It means that, for example, concentration, the last one concentration shows the same activity like the second concentration for nanoparticles. Also, they tested the action on bacterial growth on Escherichia coli, and they have found that combination of nanoparticles with the antibiotics also leads to activity, leads to high activity. And as we can see from laser, sorry. As we can see from this table, combination leads to 93 or 95 approximately percent of inhibition. For example, nanoparticles showed only the 40% of inhibition, and benzoyl penicillin and kanamycin only 60% and 6.9%. Next test was colony-forming unit activity, and they measured the concentration, minimal inhibition concentrations. So they also have found that that small concentrations of combinations shows high activity. So it's suspected that this combination of nanoparticles with the different antibiotics leads to new complex creation. And we see from this picture, it's a spectral analysis of these complexes, that these shapes are different, very different. For example, red one is for nanoparticles, the purple it's nanoparticles with the benzoyl penicillin, and the yellow one it's nanoparticles with kanamycin, which means that there is some new compound, some new complex that created in this combination. Unfortunately, we didn't know the structure of this complex, so now they are working on this combination structure, detection, for example, and as you can see the conclusions on these slides. And do the same things.
That's all?
That's all. That's all. It's our team.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, of course.
Please, the slide when you mention this one. Yeah. You combined argentum nano particle with benzoyl penicillin or kanamycin and obtain a synergetic effect. Yeah?
It's not a synergetic effect.
Not?
No.
Okay, but you used in this case
maybe it's synergetic.
A low concentration, yeah?
Yeah, it's a very low concentration.
But if you combine benzoyl penicillin with kanamycin, you obtain the same or not?
Without nanoparticle.
Without. Значит, если вы комбинируете, но без наночастиц.
Они не делали этого. Смотрите, к этим антибиотикам есть резистентность. И их совместное применение может привести к еще более быстрому развитию резистентности, как я понимаю.
Это да, но этот эффект может быть и при использовании длительными наночастиц.
Yes,
Никто
sure.
этого не отрицает.
Yeah, sure. And we also have this result on, на других линиях бактерий. Yeah, sure. Но на вот этих бактериях, насколько я знаю, нету пока резистентности.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? No? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next paper is presented by Professor Marta. Institutul Sănătate Publică.
Da?
Good afternoon, dear colleague. I would like to present the results of our study of influence of CYP2 C19 star 2 polymorphism on clinical outcomes in Moldova's patient treated with clopidogrel after percutaneous coronary intervention. The current European Society of Cardiology guidelines recommended dual antiplatelet therapy with P2Y12 inhibitor in combination with aspirin to reduce the risk of minor adverse cardiovascular events in patients with acute coronary syndrome or undergoing percutaneous coronary intervention for stable coronary artery disease. Among the P2Y12 inhibitors, clopidogrel is the most commonly prescribed for secondary prevention in patients with established coronary artery disease because its low cost, easy availability, and robust history of utility. Clopidogrel is an inactive prodrug. To inhibit platelet aggregation that needs to be converted into an active metabolite in the liver. The CYP2C19 enzyme have the most important role to the clopidogrel transformation. This enzyme is involved in two oxidation steps. Despite dual antiplatelet therapy, some patients still develop recurrent cardiovascular ischemic events such as stent thrombosis, cardiovascular death, non-fatal myocardial infarction, and stroke. A relative high percentage of patients experience suboptimal effect. The rate of low response or resistant patient range from 5% to 40% depend on population characteristics. The CYP2C19 genetic variation is the only responsible factor for the observed clopidogrel resistance. This allele's loss of function may be associated with the individual variability in platelet response to clopidogrel, and the incidence of gene mutation vary universal difference. The current guidelines state that genetic testing may be considered in high-risk patients, but current evidence is insufficient to recommend routine genetic testing in patients undergoing PCI.
The aim of the study was to investigate the effect of this polymorphism on clinical response of patients in Moldova who are treated with clopidogrel following PCI. A total of 172 patients who required double antiplatelet treatment with aspirin and clopidogrel after percutaneous coronary intervention with drug elution stent for acute coronary syndrome or for a chronic coronary syndrome were included in this study. The study was conducted in the Institute of Cardiology and Municipal Hospital Sfânta Treime in Chișinău between the 2018 and 2022 years. All patients received a loading dose of 600 mg of clopidogrel and 300 mg of aspirin prior to the PCI procedure. Following the intervention, patients were prescribed indefinite treatment with 75 to 100 mg per day of aspirin and 75 mg per day of clopidogrel for a duration of 6 to 12 months. Inclusion criteria was patient receive anticoagulant therapy, patient with metal stent implantation, with neoplasm, with renal failure require dialysis, patient with severe systolic dysfunction of the left ventricle. Method of investigation: initially clinical examination, collection of paraclinical data, calculating the precise DAPT score to individualizing DAPT duration. Blood samples were collected in the editia tube. The CYP2C19 polymorphism were evaluated using Tachman genotyping procedure. In these studies included 140 male and 32 female. The risk factor in this the patient included in the study were abdominal obesity, smoking, hypertension, diabetes mellitus, chronic kidney disease, acute myocardial infarction, unstable angina, and stable angina. The genotyping, this is the result of genotyping. A total of 172 patients were genotyping for this genotype. The genotype frequency obtained were 77.9% GG, 19.2% for GA, and 2.9% for AA. Patients were categorized by CYP2C19 metabolizer status based on star 2 genotypes, using the common consensus star allele nomenclature as normal metabolizer, intermediate metabolizer, and poor metabolizer, respectively. There are 38 patients with this allele in total. The patients were divided into two groups. One group is patient who carried this allele, and two group non-carriers. In the table, the characteristics of the patient are displayed. there are no significant difference in the parameter at baseline between the carriers and the non-carriers group. Over a follow-up period of 6 to 12 months, we observe a strong trend toward higher frequency and unstable angina, DIF, myocardial infarction, defined as stent thrombosis in carried compared to non-carried. Over a follow-up period of 6 to 12 months, carried had a duration of 4.42 for cardiac dish, 8.69 for myocardial infarction, 11.4 for stent thrombosis, and 3.47 for unstable angina compared to non-carriers. In conclusion, this gene polymorphism is an essential risk for associated with major acute coronary events in patients treated with clopidogrel after PCI. The clinical testing of this genotype has been suggested a way to personalize antiplatelet therapy selection and reduce the risk of MACE in patients undergoing PCI. By identifying patients with this polymorphism, healthcare providers can consider alternative antiplatelet therapy to optimize treatment outcomes. Our fingers support the implementation of genetic testing to select the most beneficial antiplatelet agent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Questions? Slide numărul 6, vă rog. Aici. May you explain the last sentences? Ultima parte a propoziției, cum explicați dumneavoastră, deci mutațiile variază cu diferențe rasiale, din ce, care sunt explicațiile dumneavoastră?
Deci așa este genetic. Deci cel mai frecvent alela cu pierdere de funcție se întâlnește mai ales în populația asiatică și în circa 18, chiar și mai mult procente, în populația caucaziană în jur de la 25.
Deci este
predispunere genetică, da.
Bine, și următoarea întrebare a mea este, deci aplicarea la acest tratament ca atare, dumneavoastră spuneți că micșorează unele riscuri, da?
Tratamentul?
Da.
Odată
în special micșorează, deci, frecvența de formarea tromburilor.
Deci persoanele care au această enzimă cu pierdere de funcție, ei nu metabolizează adecvat clopidogrelul. Clopidogrelul, cum am spus, este un premedicament care el necesită activarea în ficat. Odată ce avem o inactivare incompletă, fiindcă nu este enzima care trebuie să activeze acest medicament, nu își face efectul clopidogrelul, efectul antiagregant care este necesar în inhibarea trombocitilor.
Aplicarea pe lungă durată a aspirinii și celălalt component nu mărește riscul de hemoragii?
Deci, împreună, deci clopidogrelul cu aspirina?
Da.
Deci, este un risc oarecare de hemoragii.
Mai ales la persoanele în vârstă.
Da, persoanele în vârstă. Însă, noi Sunt studii care arată că deci, dubla terapie antiplachetară cu aspirin și clopidogrel nu provoacă atât de mari riscuri hemoragice ca și agenții antiplachetari alternativi, mai potenți, cum ar fi ticagrelorul și...
Deci alegem între două reguli, una mai puțin
da,
ieșire nu este situația.
Nu este, da, dar e necesar după intervenția coronariană cu implantare de stent farmacologic de primit dubla terapie antiplachetară cu aspirina și un inhibitor trombocitar. Deci, în majoritatea cazurilor, noi recomandăm clopidogrelul. De ce? Pentru că, cum am spus, este mai ieftin și mai tolerat de pacienți. Deci nu provoacă atât de mult evenimente hemoragice, cum ar fi celelalte
deci compania de asigurare recomandă mai ieftin.
Nu. Noi suntem pentru un tratament adecvat pentru pacient, dar având în vedere că sunt pacienți care nu răspund, noi recomandăm pentru a fi testați și la această alelă, ca să nu dăm greș în privința tratamentului. Dacă nu se determină alela cu pierdere de funcție, el poate să primească clopidogrel liniștit. Dacă se determină alela cu pierdere de funcție în metabolizare clopidogrel, noi trebuie să apelăm la alternative, cum ar fi prasugrelul sau ticagrelul.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
You say that the clopidogrel is not expensive in your country, yeah?
E specifică în eu.
Nu este compensație, nu este pilagă trebuie să avem.
Este în română, dar...
Spuneți în română.
Deci este cel mai frecvent utilizat în Republica Moldova din cauza costului și tolerabilitatea. El costă undeva 160 de lei, ticagrelorul undeva 1000 de lei. Deci este o...
160 de lei la 20, about 80 euro. The price is of...
It's very expensive.
More than
do you have some farm company in your country that produces this drug?
La care companii noi?
Plavix, Sanofi, este clopidogrelul.
Autohton nu este.
Autohton este de la Balkan Farm. Da. Deci până acum noi am utilizat, nu contează, la toți clopidogrelul.
Balkan Farm care e... Deci din România.
Balkan Farm, da. Dar alternativele deci mai potenți, inhibitori trombocitari, au apărut ticagrelul Brilic sau Brilinta undeva un an, deja este pe piața Republicii Moldova. Nu a fost până acum.
Nu cum?
Nu, deci nu era înregistrat și deja numai în România se găsea și în alte țări. Dar noi folosim doar clopidogrelul.
Какие? Клинические.
Outcomes?
На основе клинических проявлений можем мы предсказать, что у человека, скорее всего, такая мутация? А как долго нужно ждать, чтобы клинические проявления были и поменять схему лечения? Когда проявляется?
E de dorit ca testarea genetică să fie făcută până a iniția tratamentul cu clopidogrel. Ca să nu avem with clopidogrel. exist the patient with high risk for outcomes. If allele, loss of function allele, with diabetes, with chronic kidney disease, and obesity. Diabetes mellitus. La pacienții ăștia trebuie să tragem mai mult atenția și sunt predispuși și ca să nu avem rezultat mai bine să testăm și genetic.
These patients with a higher risk. For this genetic,
for example, if you have some patient without genetic test, how long do you wait until you understand that they side effects, sometimes side effects, or
we don't need to wait. So first of all, we should test. We should perform the test. How I understand.
Тестируется на противопоказания. Если нет, даже не назначают, я так понимаю, это...
это экстренный случай от COVID.
Ну, экстренный.
То есть они не предлагают такое лечение, если видят, что тест дает отрицательное, что нельзя этому пациенту давать. Это еще думаю, будет расположение, увеличение вот этих.
Это не скорая ситуация, а стандартное течение ведения пациента.
Да.
У вас расовые, естественно, что вы зависимы от расовой принадлежности, скажите, откуда вы расположены эти ситуации?
Ну, Asian population.
Азиатского происхождения и кавказского в том числе.
Чернокожие, да?
Yes.
Нет, это, видимо, все-таки не со цветом кожи, а расовая, потому что да, частично там связано, взаимосвязано. Да. Конечно.
Спасибо.
Primul raport noi?
Nu este.
Okay, the first presentation is not here as a person, but I think it is about uses of drone. And so you know that the Ukrainian drone is very, very secret information. I think this was the base one. Este o glumă, da, это шутка, конечно. Тогда мы закрыли, noi atunci am închis close our session. Thank you for your attention.
Nice party. Cricova.
Yes.
Thank you very much for
Thank you
presentation.
for all of you. Have a nice day in continuation.
Have a nice day too.
Da, mulțumesc frumos. Să trăiți sănătate, da. Unde este ăsta sticul meu?
Asta activați nu la facultate de calculator sau aveți un institut?
Nu, la facultate.
La facultate?
Da, noi avem